Before we start the video, today's sponsor is The Big Shuffle, a film noir card game that is live on Kickstarter. The Big Shuffle is a film noir card game where you are trying to make your way in an uncaring city. This is a competitive 2 to 4 player game where you play as one of 6 classic film noir characters, such as the Private Eye, the Femme Fatale, and the Mafia Don. Each of these characters have their own win conditions and unique abilities to achieve their agenda. You have to play smart though, as it's easy for someone else to change a scene for their benefit also. Full of role-playing opportunities, The Big Shuffle pairs well with a cigar, whiskey, and smooth jazz. The Big Shuffle Kickstarter ends on January 9th, so if you want a unique game from the iconic American era of 1940s noir film, check them out today for Kickstarter exclusives. You'll find links in the description. And with that, on to today's video. Alright everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Safely Extreme podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I am Josh Bycer from Game Wisdom, and unfortunately for our first show of the new year, Shark is not feeling too well and hasn't been able to make it. So I've asked a friend of mine to take the co-host seat for a test spin. So please welcome from Previously Pluto, Kenneth Ohm.
Hello.
Hey Ken, it's great to chat with you. So we actually had a cast going up that we did last week that we'll be going for this Friday. But since this is your first time, I guess, doing this live, I guess very quickly, could you talk a little bit about who you are and what you're working on?
Okay, sure. So we're a company within Philadelphia, an experimental game company called Previously Pluto, and we make a large variety of kinds of games. Our first game release is called The Big Shuffle. It's a film noir card game that's actually live on Kickstarter right now, with 6 days to go, and we're doing pretty well. It's a 1 to 6 player agenda-based game where you have to match your agenda, which is what's on the board, and the board is full of a who, what, and where kind of scenario. And the other game is almost the exact opposite of a film noir card game, which is a game called Oddware, which is a sci-fi visual novel about androids in space. So we've been actually developing them both in tandem, and The Big Shuffle was a game that we're releasing in 2021. And then 2022 is going to be dedicated to Oddware, our visual novel. And then after that, we're working on Codename Alita Vegas, which is our VR game that's coming out, a VR adventure game. And we may even be working on a television series. So we'll see. Got a lot of things on the pipeline.
Nice.
But I think one of our goals, too, is just to bring or at least a game development company back to Philly, because we don't have many of those.
Oh yes, and we Ken and I did a cast talking more about The Big Shuffle and kind of our own thoughts on game dev. That will be going up for this Friday. So for those of you watching this recorded, it will probably be in the next day or so. But it's great to have you on. Noticing some weird internet issues on this side. I think that could either be my connection or just some crazy Comcast problem. So hopefully it won't be too bad, but as always, I'm recording things, so at least the archive will be all silky smooth. Yeah. And
right.
To Draken's comment, VR, that's been something Ken has been very interested. He's the one who kind of clued me into the scene over the last few years.
Yeah, I've been doing development since 2011. So I have the original DK1 and DK2 Oculus headsets, along with a bunch of other experimental ones. Like I have the Vive, I have the Quest 1, Quest 2, I have the Pimax 200 field degree headset, and a bunch of other crazy stuff. So our studio always wanted to make VR games, but we started to start on smaller projects first before we get to something so cost heavy as a VR game.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly turn the stream off and then turn it back on. Maybe that will jiggle something loose or something. 1 second.
Okay.
And I don't know if that actually did anything. I'm wondering if it is an OBS weirdness. I just don't know. But hopefully it will be stable, but we'll see what happens. So, with that said, yeah, and VR. I remember, like you told me, that you got like every like you like pledged every like single like Kickstarter for VR back in the day.
I did every single one. In fact, one of them, after, and again, it was really wild. Is I backed a game called Consortium, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the stretch goals was we'll put it into VR. I'm like, all right, I like it, I'm in, and they never did it. I like
Mhm.
freaking 7 years later, and then they decided, hey, we're actually gonna put it into VR, and they did. So it's actually in VR now after like 7 years of development. They came back to the game like, you know what? We can do it in VR, and they did, and it's awesome. It feels so much better. And they have a system where instead of like pressing the A button or whatever thing, you just talk to the characters, and it detects your voice, it detects your first words. They have created their own custom system to do it. I asked them how they did it because I want to do the same thing, and it was very immersive. So I really want to play through it again.
Nice. So, with that though, let's get to our main topics, since these can certainly get very long, depending upon how much we talk about. And we are discussing 2021, a very simple topic this week in terms of the game industry. And quite a lot has certainly happened over the last 365 days, right? Or I guess 367 now.
Right, lots of drama, lots of information coming to light. Interesting announcements, interesting digressions, I'd say. A
Hmm.
lot of major missteps from billion-dollar companies. Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's definitely a lot that I think we can start with. I guess let's start with the bad, and that way we can kind of hopefully wrap up with the good with some of the games that we've played. So, the big, I guess, one of the big stories we should say is kind of like the continuing fallout of Activision Blizzard. That when
Mm.
I made up my award list for this year, I have an award, pulling a Blizzard in terms of just a complete marketing gaffe, and that was from last year with the whole, don't you have cell phones? I didn't think they would, win it 2 years running.
It was very impressive. In fact, it's kind of funny with Riot's kind of revival.
Hmm.
Um, they're doing what Overwatch should have been doing. Like they're expanding their universe with all these different games and studios and putting all this money into like an
Hmm.
actual animated show. And people were asking about with Overwatch for years. And instead of doing any of that, they decided to chase, or Activision kind of probably forced Blizzard, or Blizzard themselves decided to choose it to go the not the free to play, like what is it, like Destiny system,
Hmm.
the games as a service. Sorry,
Live
games as a
service,
service
yep.
system, right? And it always is like the most exploitive, and it always feels terrible, and the loop's pretty awful.
Hmm.
And that's what they're chasing with Overwatch 2. So instead of expanding upon their game, growing their lore, because they did a lot of great um, expansion using other types of media like
Hmm.
comics and animation and like shorts, that and even books too, that would make it made it really interesting. Like you really wanted to get more into the lore because it wasn't directly built into the competitive game.
Yep.
And then they were like, nah, Destiny.
Yep.
It's like it was a trap. It hit Bioware too. They're like, yeah, we can do this.
It's easy,
Don't do
right?
that.
You can just
Yeah, it's
swap
con-
your complete model.
constant money. I mean, 76 is doing the same thing. Like, aha,
Yep.
free money.
Yep, and I'm actually, for those of you watching this live right now, I am about 13 days away from having to deliver my manuscript on free to play game design for my fifth book. It's now almost hitting 50,000 words. It's, I think, the largest thing I've ever written. And
I don't.
what was that?
I was gonna say, I don't know. I've seen your database of posts. It's insane. It's probably like a million words.
Yeah, true. But this is the longest thing or the largest thing I've written in a single sitting or a single piece. And a lot of it is that issue when it comes to chasing live service. If you just try to do it with any game or without, a solid game plan, your game is going to fail. I rewatched the talk Valve gave in 2011, I think, about how they transitioned Team Fortress into free to play. And it's very illuminating in that respect. And what you said, I think, was very interesting about how Riot has been kind of growing the brand outside the game with music. There's I think there's like metal albums from League of Legends characters. There's the show Arcane. I mean, when you look at like kind of like the early online successes like Team Fortress, like Blizzard's previous games, there's always been that sense of lore that you could expand this with a TV show or a movie or whatever. I mean, people have been begging Valve for more Meet the Team videos for years now, and they still haven't done that. So there's definitely that market for kind of like cross brand promotions.
Yeah, and they have the money to do it. And things
Mm-hmm.
that Blizzard also has the money to do it. And like I said, they didn't even finish. Where's my Farah video? That's my girl. Like, so I feel like the game is it is do or die right now for the Overwatch 2 team, and I feel bad for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jeff Kaplan left too, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of the tomfoolery, all the horrible stuff, actually. I mean, Blizzard in general, in terms of their management, was really terrible, but it was really the WoW team's management that was really awful, like the worst of the worst.
Yeah, and to Dragon's comment, yeah, that was one of the things. Like for the longest time, people felt that it was all Activision. Like Activision was the poison seeping in, corrupting Blizzard. But from what there's been reports of and things like that, like Blizzard's been tainted for a very long time, sadly.
Yeah, it's kind of sounds like startup culture. So a lot of startup culture, it gets a lot of money in their rounds of funding.
Mm-hmm.
And like example, like Uber had like sex party
Mm.
rooms and stuff like
Oh,
that,
jeez.
BDSM stuff going on in their office, and like it's just frat boy mentality all over the place. Like nerds with no social skills finally getting money and able to abuse that,
Mm-hmm.
or people that were always low in totem pole finally having an inkling of power on other people, just abusing it. And the WoW team had such a huge success so early, so quick that as long as you're doing the right thing, we don't care. We'll turn a blind eye. And that
Yep.
goes with like things in general, but it's more awful in the games industry, especially when Blizzard's big element was about inclusiveness, right? Every voice matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except for when it comes to China or women or minorities and or anybody that isn't in management, pretty
Yep.
much, or HR.
Oh yes. And hopefully this year when I hit 10,000 beyond subscribers, I'll be able to go mad with power too. I'll get like a solid gold robe I'll wear for these streams. Go.
Yes, you'd be like, aha, sorry losers, I don't need you anymore. I've got
Yeah.
this thing from YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like as you said, like with Overwatch 2, I mean, there's also Diablo 4 that that was what they used to
Yes.
kind of appease people last year when they had the whole was it Blitzchung? I think
Yeah,
the
that's him. Right.
streamer. Yeah, and then of course, don't you have cell phones? So I mean,
That wasn't even last year. That was like 2 years ago. Was it? No,
oh,
3 years ago. That was a long time ago.
I don't even remember anymore. Again, it's
It's
been
all it's
just.
all a blur. It's all a blur.
Hmm.
They've been making mistakes nonstop. Like, and I feel bad for Diablo 2 remaster team, the team that
Hmm.
remastered Diablo 2. I mean, I heard it was pretty good, but it kind of like came and went because of all the controversy around the company.
Yeah.
Like, and they just kept messing up. And like the worst part is Bob Kotick himself, like what he was doing, because
Hmm.
he's like one of the worst of the worst. He's like, and then he sent out a message, even that tone deaf message from one of their female executives about women or whatever.
Hmm.
It was actually Bobby Kotick that wrote it through her account. Isn't
Yeah.
that messed up? Threw her
Oh yeah.
under the bus.
Oh yes.
I mean, she already had a bad reputation already because she
Hmm.
worked in the Bush administration. But then that just makes it even worse. So it's just like he's never going to be kicked out, right?
Yeah,
Unless
he has I think like majority ownership in terms of the
yeah,
share,
yeah,
so
and
he's
and
not
every,
going.
and everyone on the board is his buddy in the first place, right? So like it's just going to be making like hand over fist money forever, and he's going to be there doing his terrible stuff as long as he's enrooted too much to the company. Unless
Hmm.
everyone walks out, like every single person in every single studio says
Hmm.
"f this," we're out of here. I mean, they'll still use that money to just like hire people from other countries and stuff like that. But you're gonna lose a lot of experience, and every time you hire someone new, you're gonna lose experience. You can't just keep
Hmm.
firing everybody.
Yeah.
Just because just now I remembered Didn't he fire? Didn't they like let go of 800 people or fire 800 people during their most profitable quarter in the
Yeah,
company's
like
history?
they did a
And then
lot of firings.
then Bobby Kotick got a $150 million bonus at the same time.
Yeah.
$150 million bonus, highest profit of the quarter, lays off almost 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
That is a dick move if I ever see it.
Oh
Like,
yes. And yeah, he's not going anywhere unless, you know, something catastrophic happens. Like the WoW team just says, you know what, we're just gonna hit the off switch until he gets knocked out.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Everyone's got to step off at once. That's it. Because like, first of all, he's just so influential in the company, and he has so much money already.
Mm-hmm.
He's like definitely one of the richest executives we have in this country. So, I mean, and like he's threatened to kill people. He's harassed women in the past. Like he can do whatever he wants. And
Mm-hmm.
until we hold his feet to the fire and stop buying what are the most popular? Like, what is it? Call of Duty, those
Call of
games.
Duty, uh,
Uh,
Warcraft.
oh yeah, I guess the Blizzard games. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that was also a hostile takeover of Blizzard too. They bought the shares, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
they became Activision. It was I thought it was when I was younger. I thought it was a mutual, uh, like creating a partnership or something along those lines. Hence their name, Activision Blizzard. But in actuality, it was a hostile takeover, and that's what actually occurred because I think it was Vivendi, or was it? It was either Vivendi or another company similar to the size of Vivendi, which sold their shares,
Mm.
and that shares went to Activision, and there you go.
Yep. And like for like the last few years, we've been joking about if Bioware is still going to like survive, considering Anthem falling and a lot of people not liking Mass Effect Andromeda. And now it seems like it's turned to Blizzard, and whether or not
Well,
Blizzard will still be around.
you know what happened with Dragon Age, right? Their creative director just left
Mm.
recently, and game director, and creative director both left, which isn't a good sign because the original Dragon Age 4 sounded really cool. They wanted to scale it down and make it more like a heist kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool the way they described it. But then everyone got pulled off onto Anthem, and the team got dissolved and put in
Mm.
hiatus. And now it's coming back, but they decided to
Do
not make
something
it a free.
different. Yeah.
They want originally because originally they redid it. They dissolved the team, remade the team to make a live service Dragon Age game, and everybody was just like, "No, we don't want that. No one wants that, right?" And I understand why a lot of these like role playing companies, like role playing game companies, do the live service. It's a way to make money during the really
Mm-hmm.
long development cycles. You got 3 to 4, 5, 6 years of no profit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they had to think of something, and they just picked the worst decision they could possibly have made,
Yep.
in my opinion.
And that's
Um,
actually, I
yeah.
think, a really good segue into another major trend that's happening in 2021. That's the growth of NFTs and trying to
Mhm.
push the idea of play to earn as being like the new mobile games. Like people in the 2010s thought mobile game was going to be the future of the game industry, the casual market would completely overtake, and all that. And it didn't turn out that way. And I think we're going to be seeing similar results with blockchains and NFTs.
This is just an abuse of blockchain technology. It's not the technology that's the problem. It's the
Mm-hmm.
way that's being utilized as a scam. It's very American, very get rich quick kind of scheme, pump and dump kind of stuff going on here.
Yep.
And in the end of the day, like they see profits. Bobby Kotick's probably calls friends like, "Yo, guys, this is the NFT. Let's do it." And all these companies are going in,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna make their money if people are foolish enough, and they are. We've seen it over and over
Mm-hmm.
again.
Yeah.
And don't forget, people that pump up it are going to support this because they get more money in the end if they keep it popular.
It's essentially another pyramid scheme.
And people don't even know what NFTs even are. They just keep hearing the term over and over and over again.
Yeah. And what's very interesting is that my friend Ramin, who we do the roundtables with, he is an economist. Like he's been studying these systems now for over 20 years, and he is trying to make his next game to be a very much ethical play to earn using blockchains. And of all the games out there, his sounds the most legitimate. But the problem, of course, is that one person doing it right is being drowned out by dozens, if not hundreds, of people doing it wrong.
You said pay to play. What was the term you used again? Sorry.
Play to earn. I'm sorry.
Play to earn.
Yeah.
That sounds awful by itself. The
Mhm.
play to earn. It's like you have to work to get your leisure time back. That sounds like I know the term is that's reasonable, but to me that's how it reads to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem, that like his game, like he's going to allow like his stuff to actually like evolve and grow, which will affect its value. Like he's pretty much building the entire game around the model and trying to make it work for everyone. But he's the only one who's doing that. You know, we heard Pierre Molyneux's making an NFT style game. So you know Pierre Molyneux's games are always on the up and up and never have any problems.
The great grifter arises from the ashes. Hello, it's me. I'm promising the world. And it's all about NFTs. I need you to sign up 10 other people, quick.
Yeah. And like from what I've spoken with Ramin about, like it's very much an evolution of the whole virtual economy. That anyone who played World of Warcraft in the 2000s knows the idea of gold farming and how that became an illegal activity, and that could have been something that Blizzard could have monetized and controlled. And there's definitely, I think, a huge interest in setting up a virtual economy like that. But again, the problem is, how do you do it that's both ethical to consumers and ethical to developers? And a lot of people are just focusing on the developer side.
Right, and a lot of these big corporations are pushing NFTs, but things that a lot of the innovation comes from the indies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's already seen as one of those flashy keywords like synergy, and it's being abused all over the place. And we're seeing how kind of pointless the whole thing is, yet it's still making its money. So it doesn't matter how much rationality you throw at it, it's still going strong with the amount of hype that goes into it.
Yep. And like the ones that we're seeing everyone talks about, they're like just missing the point. Taking a screenshot and turning it into an NFT, that's not creating value. That's trying to pass off the emperor's new clothes. It's gonna be worth millions of dollars. A screenshot that I took of someone.
Well, a lot of people's art is being stolen too. So artists already had a large problem with that work being stolen from the get-go. But now we have people stealing for NFTs beyond just stealing their stuff and putting on a shirt, right? Because there's algorithms and bots out there that look for your artwork and put it on shirts and sell it at shops. And it's really hard, especially when you're a small company or just like a singular artist. How can you defend your original work? It's difficult.
Oh yeah. And
now people are stealing it for NFTs. You're like, okay, now what? That's even worse.
And it's very much that space where it's going to be an uphill battle, no matter what you're trying to do in it. Because I'm sure there are people other than Ramin who are trying to make it legitimately work. But when you see on Twitter every day someone who lost hundreds of ape cartoon NFTs who lost their fortune, it's very hard to see the light in it.
Right, because in the end of the day, it's about after you got mine culture, the concept of, as long as I'm grifting and I make the money first, it doesn't matter who falls behind me, right? That's the whole concept of the pyramid scheme too, right? Everyone on the bottom, they suffer. They get left holding the bag while you're already away on your yacht with Bob Kotick just going off into his own secret island or whatever.
And I mean, something that I spoke with Ramin about is that it's very much drawing similarities to the mobile market. That there are a lot of mobile games that were designed around that slash and burn mentality. That let's just get in, take a cheap license, we'll get as much money as we can, then we'll shut the game down. I mean, everyone remembers like EA's first offerings in terms of mobile. And it poisoned the well for a lot of that market.
It only takes one game to make you like substantially rich, right? And then after you're done with that, you can leave or keep grifting,
And the games that have been trying to do things legitimately, or at least trying to evolve that space, either A, they're not getting enough word amount and they're going under, or B, they still have to use these monetization systems because that's what that market expects out of them. But the problem is that you can't grow beyond that space. Like if any of like the big name mobile games try to put out an actual PC version, PC gamers would rip those games to shreds in terms of, gotchas and energy systems and so on.
Hey, don't forget there's Genshin Impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a gotcha game that's doing very well. I think what is it's just I think in them they're aping a style that people like the aesthetic of like Breath of the Wild,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really focusing on these characters. And I think overall people really do enjoy the game, thinking that they won't be hit by these systems. But that FOMO is always there and always strong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's a good example of how these like very core mobile concepts being used in a mainstream, very publicized, beloved game in
Mm-hmm.
the PC space.
Yeah. I mean, like in the research that I've done, like the only two free to play games I think have consistently done well, been on the up and up, have been Path of Exile and Warframe. And they were designed exclusively around live service. And
Um,
yep,
Isn't Warframe, by the way, purchased by Tencent fully?
I
Oh,
believe they did get purchased, I
oh,
think,
no, no,
as
no.
of 2021.
It was Path of Exile, their
Oh, yeah,
developers.
you're
They
right,
got
Path of
bought out.
Exile.
They got bought out, but Warframe has like a percentage owned by Tencent too.
Mm, yeah. And it's going to be like with Path of Exile, they are working on a sequel, and we normally don't see live service games get sequels unless either A, something went horribly wrong, or B, they're just going to kind of completely start from scratch with the new game. So I'm curious to see what they're actually going to do with Path of Exile 2.
Yeah, I like grinding gears. I think they're doing Diablo better than the Diablo team's doing. Like I said, Overwatch,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like not Overwatch, but the Blizzard team, I feel like they've been left in the dust, right? While everyone's
Mm-hmm.
evolving and pushing their formula further and actually doing some true innovation,
Mm-hmm.
they're just kind of resting on their best hits, right?
And
And even
the
their best hits are really bad. It's like what is it, Warcraft 3 Reforged,
yeah.
right? They like it's like they came there. It's like when you see your favorite artist come out and he's like 30 years older, he's already drunk on stage and he can't hear a single thing he's saying, and then he just passes out and you spent $100 on that show. That's like that was Warcraft 3
Yeah.
Reforged, and you can't even buy the original one anymore, right? It's like that's
No.
replaced it. That's awful.
And the thing is that like Blizzard's MO has always been refinement and iterating on ideas and concepts. Like they've never been one to just kind of repeat. They basically were, okay, what's the newest trend? How do we elevate that? And they haven't done a lot of elevating in the last decade.
Where was their they had a level of quality that didn't they wouldn't release anything if it wasn't that stamp of approval. And we've
Mm-hmm.
seen multiple releases where it didn't meet that approval too.
Yeah.
And the question is, like, did that go away because of the talent drain, or was it just over time, or was it Activision leaving them to be less autonomous? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what was the actual cause of this kind of like turnaround or degradation of that kind of line that they created?
Yeah.
It's like when Google decided to stop using the term "Don't be evil" as their tagline.
That's always a good sign when a company gets rid of "Don't be evil."
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, so what is it? It's on the table now? Okay, great. This is be scared, everyone.
So I have a question for you, and I have a question for the chat as well. As we've been talking about kind of like this kind of cross promotional trend that's happening with the game industry. Like another thing is there's going to be a Super Mario movie, and I believe Chris Pratt is voicing every character in it. But there's of course the Witcher series on Netflix. We already mentioned League of Legends. Do you think that is going to become a larger trend going forward? Seeing more video game properties kind of spread outside the game space.
I think because games have evolved in terms of narrative and
Mm-hmm.
becoming, because in the past, video game industry had had a lot of jealousy, right,
Mm-hmm.
towards the the movie industry, right? A lot of directors, failed directors, moved into games, seeing that they could make their games cinematic, and haven't everyone wanted to make, especially in the early 2000s, make their games cinematic. That's why they're so heavy on the cutscenes and everything else. And even now, there's a certain level of prestige that comes with movie over games. Games are always going to seem kind of like toys to the general public. But it is getting better. But at the same time, the properties are now getting more mature, and gamers are getting older. Their expectations aren't being tied to like how cartoons should be only for kids, kind of thing. And because of that, we have much better properties to create films for. And I think people are starting to see how we can push the medium. And I think it's best when it's not a movie. I think it's best when it is a TV series, a television series, something that you can really focus on characters, or shoving everything in 2 hours, right? Mario is very simple, but I mean, Sonic kind of worked, but both of them, I don't know if they could be series, but I guess they could work as like children's films. So there you go.
And I think again, like, the money is going to be a huge factor in this.
Well, I'm talking The Witcher itself, like CD Projekt Red probably got saved a bunch of times because of the Witcher series, 1 and the 2nd season. Like their sales are up and up. Like, and Cyberpunk is back up to 20 to 30,000 concurrent players. So it's interesting to see all these people. Like, also we can talk about Cyberpunk later in our game of the year discussion. I mean, it's not technically 2021, but I want to talk about it anyways.
All right. Yeah, and I think like even the idea, and to Draken, I think beat me to it that even in the mobile space, there are a lot of the bigger mobile games that have a lot of lore. Their characters become big and famous. They become, the marketing speak. They become marketable outside of their respective brands. Again, we saw this with League of Legends. Arknights, the mobile tower defense game, is getting an anime series. Azure Lane has an anime series. Like, there's this idea, and I mean, look at Fortnite. Like, Fortnite is like the black hole of corporate synergies with all the collaborations they have with it. That video games are becoming, I think, a very wide or very large canvas that you can go into other aspects of it. Well, Uncharted movie exists, but I don't see it. Yeah, I agree with that too, Draken. I think the Uncharted movie has just been in, now you got me saying catfish. It's been in a development hell for so long that I don't think it's going to really do all that much. Just like the Warcraft movie, that everyone remembers that movie, right?
China does. That's why it made it a success. Halo also was is what game's been in hell, the movie Hell, but they're releasing that soon too. And the thing is that neither of them really excite me. There's a lot of other universes I'd rather see. I do really want to see Overwatch's universe. That sounds really, really cool. But like I said, the team itself, the initial team, is like half of them are still there, but half of them are gone. They left with Kaplan to form their own studio. And he was trying to protect them from all that horrible stuff at Blizzard. And I guess that was enough, and him and half his team left and made their own company.
Draken, to Princess Connect, was it an anime series that turned into mobile, or a mobile game that's getting turned into an anime series? Because I can't tell with that one, because again, it was released. It took 2 years to be released globally, so I'm not sure where those timelines line up. Yeah, and again, I would love to. I think everyone who's played Team Fortress wants to see more Team Fortress related stuff out there.
There's a lot of creative source filmmaker people out there, like Winglet, that work with Valve and create long formed stuff with the characters, and it's just as good.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with Valve focusing on other elements. I don't have to be a dev. I know people were rolling their eyes at Half-Life Alyx, but in terms of what it did for VR development and what you can do, such fidelity is incredible. It's definitely a milestone in VR games.
Yeah. And it's kind of why Valve is still one of the principal studios in the game industry. That when they put something out there, the industry stops and looks at what they do.
And like that game is so incredible in terms of the technology that it actually left ripples in game development. Like people are all like, how did they do that cool liquid in the bottle thing? That's
Mm-hmm.
crazy to do a simulation like that. But it wasn't a simulation, it was a shader. It was a very complex shader. And so now people are replicating that in their own kind of projects too. Things like
Yeah.
there's like all these small things that they added to it that we were like, you can do that, and people will charge you to do reverse engineering to see if they can add to their game.
Yeah.
And Alex has a workshop, so people have made mods and stuff like that, like Silent Hill and stuff, using the same mechanics, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, because I work in Unity, I see people replicating systems in Alex and selling it as an asset in the store, and I'm
Mm.
like, cool. I don't have to build that myself. It's cool that people are doing it for me.
Nice. And I think with like again, like we're still like speaking about Valve. I think that's another. We're getting some really good segues, I think, for our show this week. That another interesting trend, of course, has been, and since we haven't had a chance to talk about between the two of us, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the whole Epic Games store versus Steam store wars?
I think that what they're trying to do is noble to a degree, right? They want
Mm-hmm.
that game developers take a larger cut, which is great because 30% is really high, especially if you're not selling a huge amount of copies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you sell several million, it's a drop in the bucket kind of thing. But if you're only selling like 30,000, that's a pretty large chunk of your profits, 30%, right? Um, and are we talking about Epic and Valve or Epic and Apple or both? Do you want to talk about?
Uh, let's do Epic and Valve first.
If it's Epic and Valve, then my issue is this: is that they're spending all this money to get exclusive, which is really annoying for me because I just want
Mm-hmm.
everything in one location.
Yeah.
But they haven't really, even though they're giving all these free games away, they haven't really kind of matched the systems that Steam has, right? So you have a bare
Mm-hmm.
bones. I mean, just recently, like what, a month ago, they added a shopping cart.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked by that when I bought some games the other day.
Every single person's just like, oh, looky, looky. They're finally moving into 1997 or whatever, 1993, really, with
Mm-hmm.
the shopping cart ad, which is insane that they didn't have it for such a long time. For what purpose? For what design reason? I have no idea, right? You assume that you want to buy more than one game at a time on a
Yeah.
store as supposed to be equivalent. So if you're going to match your competitors, then try to match what they're doing at least at the most base scale. That's like starting a restaurant, but you don't have any chairs or tables, and everyone's got to stand to eat there, right? And they don't use a cash register that's electronic. It's like a hand crank register. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
you 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 have all this money behind you. You can't do the right market research or have a software timeline to be able to match the features to make it truly competitive. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
you're offering is that you're giving developers a fair shot. And as a developer myself, I appreciate that. But at the same time, you have to, like,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to hurt long term if your store isn't doing well and they're exclusive to you, which is why it's great that they are giving them money up
Mm-hmm.
front. But not everyone gets money up front,
Mm-hmm.
right? You only hear about the big ones that get like millions, but sometimes people just get like 1,000 or a couple hundred or whatever,
Yeah.
right? It varies based on how much of interest you get.
Yeah. Like for me, like I'm going where the developers are to support them. So like if a developer does something exclusive with the game that I'm interested in, I'll buy it from EGS. But in the same vein, it's the same catch we've seen with the MMO chase. Everyone tries to be or everyone tried to be the next World of Warcraft. Nobody during World of Warcraft's peak ever came close in terms of function and utility. And it's the same thing with EGS. Like,
Not anymore.
true.
Final Fantasy 14 is killing it
Yeah,
to
who
the point
made
where they had to stop selling their game because they can't match the demand
it
because of that
only.
giant. I'm just saying, like Blizzard is finally actually being truly hurt because they just people just really hate that expansion. They hate the story. They hate the expansion. A lot of
Mhm.
people have already left the community. A lot of major streamers have left out
Yep.
of frustration. There's no true leadership.
It only took 17 years. That's the crazy part.
Right, right. It took that long, but all that
Mhm.
abuse, all that talent being abused too,
Mhm.
right? And like this is something that I know we're kind of off tangent here, But and I was talking about other people in the games industry, is just that when we're taught in school about the games industry and what you're going to have to do, they always brag about what we call war stories. The concept of
Mm-hmm.
telling people what you had to sacrifice to get a deadline completed. Oh, guess what? I slept underneath my desk all weekend and just ate like Cheetos off the floor
Mm-hmm.
to get my project done and stuff like that. They normalize like 7 days a week, right? Working 120 hours and expecting other people to do such a thing. And if you don't, then you're a weakling and you need to be
No.
kicked out. And it's a grinder because they have
Mm-hmm.
so many people that want to be in the industry, both in game development and animation, that they can do that. And they price fix too. Like there was a lawsuit between like DreamWorks and another studio
Mm-hmm.
that they said instead of poaching talent, they made sure to freeze all their wages so no one could be poached, right? And in the game industry, the only way to truly make money or to get the recognition is to make your own studio after you create a game or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of retaining talent, they rather let their talent go and hire someone cheaper.
Yep.
And the only people who are left are the senior management.
Mm.
I'm just saying it's a terrible way to go. And I think that this year, 2021, is the year of the reckoning, right? Because there's the great resignation where a lot of people are leaving their
Mm-hmm.
companies because of work from home. They can work anywhere at a better salary.
Yep.
Because think about this, the reason why like Blizzard, like you think working at Blizzard is amazing, but if you're making only $60,000 in the Bay Area, where
Yep.
you're like your minimum needs to be like 120, where your rent's like 4,000, 5,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can be like a 30-year-old like adult with children having to share an apartment with other people that are game developers. Is that really living the dream? As a
Yep.
software developer at that age and that experience, you can make triple that. Like
Yep.
it's insane.
And the whole point of what led to the rise of indie development is that you don't need an office. You don't need to worry about having to drive, an hour plus, a day to get to a job when you can do it from your home. You can do it in your spare time. It's again like I've spoken to developers like yourself as well and many others who, you know, they don't want to get into that grind. They don't want to kill themselves to release a game.
And they don't have to,
Yeah.
too. But like the pressure of being a publicly traded company means that there's investors, and because those investors, you got to get something on release because it affects your bottom line because you have stakes, you have shares within your own company. Even if you say you take a zero salary, it doesn't matter because your money is tied to the assets that you create for the company in terms of stocks and stock options, which is awful, right? So again, you push these people to the brink. You ever watch the Simpsons episode where Homer works for a villain, like a Bond villain named
Yeah.
Scorpio? You know what he does to improve their productivity? He asks the team, "Hey guys, can you work harder?" Okay, Mr. Simpson. And then they work themselves to death. At the end, they're like barely alive, and they're like, "Great job! You're the best manager. We are 120% efficiency." Right?
Yeah.
So who gets rewarded? Not the people that are actually doing the work, but the management giving the orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then yes, all the pressure, all the stuff goes to the director, but never to the staff. But then again, I do see there is also some interesting things that I've heard from Riot in terms of their developers too. By the way, if anyone wants to make like high end money, like where do you want to end up? You want to end up at Riot. It seems like according to like a bunch of industry like posts and people releasing their salaries, it all comes down to Riot being the best in terms of giving like 6K figures
Yeah.
to even to mid tier developers, meaning only 5 years out.
Yeah. I think I just heard they had to pay out from a sexual harassment lawsuit like a few weeks
Right,
ago.
because they only had to pay 10 million, which is nothing. We're talking about people
Mm-hmm.
farting on people's faces,
Mm.
being harassed, being abused. Like, you know what's funny? I thought Riot was really, really bad, and they are bad, by the way. So they
Mm-hmm.
had to pay 100 million. They are still bad, but they are turning it around or trying to turn it around. But Blizzard, boy, those stories from Blizzard, because it's not a person, not a group of women suing um, Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
It's the state of
Yep.
California suing them after a 2-year investigation. And the stuff that's coming out that is public because it is a state, it is awful. We're talking about women being
Mm-hmm.
harassed, like boys being shot around, people killing themselves,
Yep. It's something
HR
that.
covering it up.
Yep. I've spoken with Ramin about this several times. It's a again like it very much seems like Blizzard is at their end days right now, unless something major changes.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be Overwatch 2.
Nope.
Like because again, they're just making it like they're talking about, oh well, every day you can log in and do a hero quest. I'm like, I don't want that. No one wants that. I don't want that. I don't want more dailies. That's awful. So talking about premium subscription services and all that stupid stuff, like I don't want that. No one wants that. It sounds awful. So it's not going to save them. But like it feels predatory if you think about it. Just thinking about it now is that they talked about being so inclusive and so like diverse and all these things about Blizzard and some great messaging, right? Like true progress at a AAA studio. And you see all this crap come out, and it feels like they preyed on women specifically to come to our studio to then get preyed upon because we pretended to be a safe space. I think that specifically happened in the World of Warcraft team over the Overwatch team, but it doesn't matter because all of Blizzard's tied to it. So I just feel bad for the Overwatch team, and I'm like, you know what, World of Warcraft team, you kind of deserved it if you let those people stay out so long.
I think you may be right about that, Draken. Right, is grateful to Activision Blizzard. Just like Grinding Gear Games is probably very grateful to Blizzard in terms of failing to get Diablo 3 in a good state at launch.
Sometimes people spite buy a lot too. Like there was that one game, I think it was like a black and white game. It was kind of like a gothic puzzle gamer, and I forget the name. I think it was like one word, but that developer refused the Epic Game Store's exclusivity deal that would have net him a couple $100,000 or whatever. He said no to it, and because of that, his game rocketed on Steam. He was making hand or fist money, and all the reviews were like, "Great job." Oh, this is what I talk about integrity, that kind of thing, all over the place on Steam reviews. And this guy was getting like love bombed out the wazoo. I'm like, you know what? That's a good tactic. I mean, he might have actually believed that, but he was truly benefiting off that because people need to put their rage somewhere, and they love rage this dude.
Yep. Back like with more a little bit about the Epic Game Store, it's definitely going to be again like I think to what Draken said earlier that it's definitely like their second or third like thing in terms of their priority, maybe their fifth or sixth at this point. That if they were serious about like being fully serious about competing with Steam, it shouldn't be taking this long to get basic functionality. I think they just put achievements in, I think like 5-6 months ago or something like that. Or like achievement tracking, I think, or something like that.
I never want to say conspiracy theories, so I will not do conspiracy theories. But from the hard data, what they're kind of doing is they're just trying to be a better competitor than what Origins and Uplay and all those systems that they have in place to avoid the fees. They want to be a true competitor to Steam, but why the slow rollout, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a slow rollout? My opinion, technologically, they can do it. They got that Fortnite money, and the only reason they're surviving is because of that Fortnite money.
Yeah.
But no, it's not true. Fortnite money and Unreal licenses are making a lot of money because again, another real quick aside. Dragon Age 4 announced they're using Unreal 5, which is going to look awesome because one of the biggest issue with Anthem and all those other games that came out in like the mid 2000s is having to use Frostbite. Right? It wasn't meant for RPGs, so they had to recreate everything from the ground up, and it was awful. And whoever the CEO was at the time was like, "We can save money on licensing costs." I'm like, "What? You're gonna sacrifice, a couple $100,000 for like a mega loss and destroying your brand? Like, stupid."
Yep. And like with like the whole Epic Games Store in terms of like the indie space, like I've been buying a lot of the holiday games or the using their $10 coupon because it means I can get a game for $5 and the developer gets full price. And that's a win-win there. But again, if you launch on the Epic Games Store with an exclusivity deal just as it is, like it's going to be very hard, I think, for those games to stand out. Because I mean, the first thing you look at when you go to the Epic Games Store is a giant plastered image of Fortnite or Rocket League. It's, I think, very much that same issue that a lot of indie developers face when they went on to Nintendo's eShop. That, I'm on the eShop, and here's a giant thing of Mario. I'm sure everyone's going to ignore Mario and look at my game.
Yeah, I think, like I said, too many games are coming out, and it's hard to get that certain level of notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just impressed that one of our games is actually doing well, and it's not even selling on the store. It's on Kickstarter, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it really need a lot of we need better curation systems, right? I think maybe if they want to stand out, Epic, maybe they should make a better curation system than Steam does, because they have a lot of issues on their own side of being people being bombed or reviewed bombed and stuff like that occurs. I mean, they do wipe it out like Amazon does, but
Mm-hmm.
some of those reviews are worthless, like completely worthless as user reviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
It literally is. I installed, I know, like thumb down. I'm like, okay, great. Does that help me? No, but does it hurt the developer? Yes. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're at the, like, a lot of developers are at the mercy of user reviews, and they're also at the mercy of like Metacritics too, right? Because there's always those a holes that are like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm gonna give this game 0 out of 5 stars out of principle because I don't like the name. I'm like, oh, okay, but he's an accredited person on Metacritic, so he just tanks your review down all the way to the bottom
Mm-hmm.
because he wants to be the edgy boy.
Or, I loaded up the game, didn't like the main character, uninstall 0 out of 10.
Yeah, or I played this early access game and there was a glitch in it, 0 out of 10. I'm like, you freaking do you know what early access is? Do you understand what a beta or alpha is? Come on, right?
This game was
Um,
released on early access, but not everything is done in it.
yeah, people are buying Baldur's Gate 3 and they're like, hey, this game isn't done. I'm like, it's on early access. Like, they've been doing it for years. Like, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like when they come out, they're awesome. Divinity 2 is one of the greatest role playing games I've ever seen. Like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of content is insane for that game, and I'm excited. I'm not even touching Baldur's Gate 3 until it's full release out, because I know I'll be happy when it comes out. But I feel like a game like Cyberpunk definitely could have done that same route, and I think the game would have been way better for it. But they would have sacrificed a lot of the story. Whatever. Point is, um, I think that like they need to offer better counter systems than Steam. If they're not doing something that's better than Steam, then they should create systems that Steam hasn't even thought of yet. That
Mm-hmm.
to really help things like curation, for example. Because if you got, a million games, how can something new stand out? Especially when everyone, even you, I'm sure, does it
Mm-hmm.
too. Is to when you review games, you refer to other games every time. You don't do it on its own merits. It's always like
Mm-hmm.
it's a Souls like. It's like this, it's like that. It's like a Mario clone, right?
Mm-hmm.
People can never describe. And the reason you do it is to save time. That's why stereotypes exist in movies and stuff, right? With characters.
Yep.
Um, but the thing is that with game development and game reviews, it's like you do have the time to actually do it. But I guess if it's in a video format, it has to be shortened. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Whenever you ever catch yourself describing games through other games,
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
why do you need to do that? Do you think? Why do you go? Why do you? What's the thought process?
usually it's the simplest way to explain what a game is. You can relate, different genre qualifiers or game qualifiers. How many Slay the Spire likes, Dead Cells, action roguelikes, and or Metroidvanias like Dragon with Hollow Knight. That
Hmm.
it's shorthand for being able to kind of say, okay, this is what you should expect out of the game. Now here's the new stuff, and this is what I want to focus on.
Right, but by doing so, do you think you? I know this is just me just off the cuff because I didn't really think about this, but
Mm-hmm.
do you think it puts undue pressure on the game to be measured to that level? But are they already going to be measured by that level anyways?
I think to some extent today's market, yeah, they are. Like if you're going to release a deck builder game, even if you are completely different from Slay the Spire, you're going to be great next to Slay the Spire.
Even Inscription?
I'm going to say probably a few people. The whole point of Inscription was people didn't like the fact that they couldn't keep playing it endlessly, like Slay the Spire. And now there's going to be a mod that's going to let you do just that.
Well, dang. Well, there is mods for Slay the Spire too. I
Oh
have a Sailor
yes.
Moon mod for Slay the Spire. So I mean, there's a lot of things. Like I really do love Workshop. So
Mm-hmm.
um, like example, one of the things that we've done to create more visibility for the Big Shuffle, our game, is
Mm-hmm.
to put it on Tabletop Simulator as a mod. So we have the Big Shuffle as a mod
Mm-hmm.
on tabletop. You can play it today. So instead of having us send out our physical game, which costs a lot of money, right, to produce a physical copy of our game right now in prototype
Mm-hmm.
form, we can just ask reviewers to just check it out on Tabletop Sim, where we can play it with them to explain the game. And what's really cool about our tabletop simulator mod, by the way, is it actually beat Magic and Pokemon for 1 week.
Nice.
Eh? It was at the top for 1 week, and I think it's because I made the game super atmospheric and put a lot of cool 3D models in there and stuff to make it seem very film noirish. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Nice.
But that's one thing. Mods are so cool, and I'm awesome that Steam has a system like that. Do you think Epic, who just put a shopping cart, is going to match the mod workshop that Steam has?
Maybe by like 2063.
I don't know. That sounds a little too positive there. Like even things like, and again, it's kind of fun to kind of go in and look at the backgrounds, profile frames, profile back, like all that kind of stuff like they add to the
Mm-hmm.
customization of who you are, your individual like thing. It's fun, you know? It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of cool. And being able to play these games and give developers more options to help make their game seem a little bit more intriguing, a little more rewarding beyond its
Mm-hmm.
own means is really cool. Does Epic do that? Because they don't give all their games money, right? Everyone
Mm-hmm.
goes on the store doesn't get money from them, right? It's always like these. I feel like the lower developers in with like promise of like, oh, this guy got $100,000. This game sucks comparison
Mm-hmm.
to your idea. Why don't you come join us and we'll give you nothing? I'm like, huh, strong argument. Maybe I will.
Yeah, I mean the personalization continues to be one of the major motivators of a lot of monetizations and just playing games in general. And yeah, like the workshop modding, like that is still like one of like the better features on Steam. I mean, there's like a countless number of mods for XCOM now, and I still remember the original XCOM. It was notoriously difficult to do any mods. Like that's the whole point of the Long War mod. When I spoke to the creator, that they spend like 4 or 5 years having to kind of build the tools that they need to actually create the mod for the game.
Right. But at the same time, I think it's paying off. Like these mods bring new life to these older
Mm-hmm.
games, right? Think about like Skyrim is now on its fourth relaunch with anniversary. Okay, that is freaking insane that we're at this far in, and mods really do change the game entirely. I was watching someone mod the game into Sekiro. I'm like, holy crap, that looks freaking awesome. I played that again. I'm like, why do I
Skyrim will
like?
never
I
die.
have more. I'll be honest with you. I spend hours. I mean, I'll talk about a whole week once just dedicated to modding my Skyrim for VR. And then I played like 10 minutes of it and I stopped. Why do I do this? Why do I do this? I'm not the only one. There's a bunch of people. It's his own genre, just modding Skyrim or modding Fallout. And that's like your whole time. And then you play it for 5 seconds, like, looks good. And you stop
And
playing
then
it.
never look at it again.
You never look at it again. Until like a couple more months later, someone has a video of a mod. You're like, I could do that. Let's check out the current state of mods right now. Boop, 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 boop. And then you just go down the rabbit hole. You burn all the time away and you never play the game again.
Yeah, and yeah, to Draken's point, yeah, exactly. Like they could probably have fixed a ton of the issues with the Epic Game Store within like probably like a few months if they really put their focus on it. But yeah, I mean,
So, time and money, right?
yeah,
But they have the time, they have the money, they have the means, they have the connections. Why not? Is there an actual strategy to it, right?
mm-hmm.
Or is it really just a thinly veiled way for their investors to get into the pockets of these specific types of gamers? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the only like one positively or maybe good thing that could come out of it could be at least shaking up Steam enough to lower their
I
what's
don't. I
the
don't think. I don't think.
fee. Yeah.
Oh, the fee. I don't think they're really shaking up Steam too much, right? It's
Yeah.
not Steam that's shaking up. It's Apple that's shaking up.
Yeah. I think again, like Steam is just too enrooted in terms of the game industry at this point that, like we said earlier, if you're going to try and beat Steam, you basically need to release your platform at Steam levels day one. Because if it's
Well,
not there, no one's going to be interested.
the tools, by the way, because I put Oddware, our second game, up on Steam,
Mm-hmm.
its tools are way better for developers in terms of putting stuff in there and the information required. And there's like everything seems pretty straightforward. While I feel like the Epic Game Store, it's a bit more confusing, and I feel like there's not much way for communication to get back to me quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had a timeline and need to get something out right away, I feel like I wouldn't be able to get the Steam support. I would get on Steam's, which is really insane because how big Steam is. If people will like I'll submit something and I'll get a message back in a day or two, even with their billion like a million game submissions they have a day or whatever. So I find that pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to match that too. If they're putting their money on the developers and they need to create better tools behind the scenes, do it too.
Yeah. And like we've said before, like on many of our design casts here, like the platform of Steam is still like if you want to be serious as a game developer, you have to include your game on it at this point. And
I have a question for you
yep.
about that, by the way. So I put my game on Steam at least like pre-launch, right, for wishlist purposes, without a video. And the reason I did that was because it was going to take me so long to actually make the video that someone told me it's better just to put the page up there so people can wishlist it with the promise of playing the demo already. That it's fine without the video, because I feel like the video is okay to put up closer to launch when I'm actually having all the game mostly more completed. Do you think that was a good call, or do you think I am hurting myself by not having a video up there?
You may be hurting yourself a little bit. Like if the store is up and live on Steam right now, then it's being factored into the algorithm. And if people aren't clicking on it or they're not wishlisting it because there's not a video, that is going to hurt you in the long term. Like you can always, relaunch a store page and things like that, but one of the things that we've seen, especially from a lot of the stuff we review on in the inquiries, is that the games that start really high up in terms of viewer interest generally can maintain, or that, the snowball that grows. Like the games that tend to suffer are the ones that day one the store page is bad, or they're not getting a lot of reviews. So Steam doesn't market it. And when Steam doesn't market your game, it means you're not going to get more reviews. And
interesting. You're making it sound like Kickstarter, by the way.
Yeah.
I know the formula. I'm very, very aware of the formula of Kickstarter. I did a lot of research before launching that thing, but I didn't do much. I didn't do much research on Steam releases.
Yeah. And Steam is very much like we've said this before. Like Steam doesn't care about your game; they care about making money. And the games that day one, blow up, they get lots of interest. Steam's going to market those games more because it's earning more money. If your game doesn't earn a lot of money day one, they're going to ignore your game.
I think it depends on the genre of game, though, because our game isn't day one explosion, let's as many people play it as possible kind of game. It's a visual novel. It's a narrative game. And like when we go to conventions, we see two types of people that freaking hate the game and they're smashing that A button looking for the guns, or the people that sit there for 30 minutes at a crowded convention and ignore all the fun stuff around them. And I mean, the game's fun too, but all the stimulation around them and just play our game and love our characters. And I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen such a wide range of love and hate for our game in a while. Or not even hate. It's more like meh. You know what I mean? Because it's a visual novel. You have to listen to things and read things, right? And I feel like it's more of a long-term growth kind of thing, like putting it up there, getting some like low-key hype, and then making updates as we go until we get to launch.
And to Dragon's point, but for a lot of indie games, they don't even launch with demos. Like a demo is definitely would be one of the best things to market your game with. But if you don't have a demo, if all somebody has is the store page, then you need to make sure that store page is firing on all cylinders. Now, one of the more interesting trends, like that actually gives me a chance to go on a little tangent of my own, that one of the other trends that we've seen over the last year, maybe even a little bit more than that, has been Steam really embracing festivals. These periods of time that kind of focus spotlights on games. I mean, I've covered, oh my god, I've lost track. I think I've covered at least 5 or 6 of them at this point. And the festivals have been a really good way But I think part of the problem has been that the first festival, just like with the first Steam sale, was a major event. We're up to number 5, number 6 probably coming in the next few weeks. How are new games really going to capture that same lightning in the ball when everything is being put into a festival? Like I think
I
the oh,
oh sorry, go on.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say, I think a lot. I think for the festivals to do better or to hit their goal more, they need to be more focused. That if this festival is for up and coming games, I don't want to see a game that came out 3 months ago. I want to see something that's coming out in a year. And if you're just putting everything on there, then it loses that sense of, oh my god, these are games I've never seen before. Let me, go down, check every single demo that's on there.
To me, those festivals. Am I lagging? Am I good? Okay. Anyways,
Yeah, you're good.
so those festivals did really help me because some of those festivals are genre based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of them was adventure and visual novels, and I'm like, this is my jam. This is like my time to go in. I'm not a huge visual novel person. I'm an adventure game person
Mm-hmm.
first. So even though we're making a visual novel game, it has got a boatload of adventure. We're like on the cusp of not being a visual novel, right? We're somewhere in between the two
Mm-hmm.
because I don't really believe in following the restrictions if I don't have to. I just want to make something that's fun. It doesn't matter if one's conventional or not. So I found a game called Chinatown Detective Agency through the festival,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a little demo of it. But I never really seen an Asian focused like game, but an Asian focused game that's adventure too, which is really cool. And I want to see if they're going to put cultural stuff in there. How does it being Chinese or in Chinatown have any sort of relevance? What kind of world it
Mm-hmm.
is? It just created kind of general interest. I would never discovered that on my own without the festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's so many niche games that exist out there. It's really hard to find a game you may like or may, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not even about a representation. Sometimes it's just about general interest, something you haven't seen before.
Oh yes.
Um, and I think our game itself has a lot of visual impact, but I really do believe that we can start slow and build it up from there. And then when we actually do launch, then we put the hype machine up. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's okay to just have it up. So while we're going to live events, instead
Mm-hmm.
of them going to nowhere, we can have them go to the page and wishlist it for the future if they're interested in our product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't plan to launch until like December 2022 or maybe even November 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have quite some time before we actually do that. But a big portion of how we're gonna get our hype up is live events. We are a big believer in doing that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard. Like you should have a cast about marketing your game sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been going through the throes of marketing on our Kickstarter and everything else like that, and everything that goes into marketing as a game
Mm-hmm.
developer. And it really is its own thing, and you need a whole team to do it. And it sucks, and no one likes it, but they have to do it.
Oh
And
yes.
you know what's really wild about our project? So we're pretty successful on Kickstarter, like we said so far. We're doing pretty well,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, I'm always critical on my own work,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always also kind of expecting the worst all the time. So I'm really happy that we're doing well, and a lot of it is word of mouth, right? So we didn't have any ads running at all until yesterday. Just
Mm-hmm.
because the first time we tried to run ads, Facebook denied us because there was smoking in one of our ads. Because it's film noir, there's smoke everywhere, right? So we just said F that, and we just started doing our own marketing just directly to people and focusing on live events and letting people play the game live and seeing if they liked it or not, right?
Mm-hmm. And
So,
oh, go
yep.
ahead. Finish your thought.
And I was gonna say, and for Oddware, visual novels are very much a Japanese genre. So we're gonna bring our game to anime conventions, which has a lot of anime, like Japanese culture fans there, to show our game and to demo our
Mm-hmm.
game there, and to kind of promote from there so they can demo it there, but also demo it on Steam eventually in time, and then
Mm-hmm.
push both those together to kind of like convert people to sales. So or at least a wish list. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my general concept. I mean, I'm sure there's much more things that we can do, but I haven't been reliant on the paid inorganic marketing and or paid marketing
Mm-hmm.
because you could lose money real quickly. You may never get that back.
Yeah.
So I'm a little hesitant on it.
Mm-hmm. And I want to go back to Juan's comment from earlier about like for like the casual or just like the mainstream, and I think that is a good point as well. I think again, like one of the things that I don't think we really factored in terms of the Epic Game Store versus Steam, is definitely the Fortnite influence. Again, if you play Fortnite, you're going to be involved with Epic no matter what, and I think that funnel is probably attributing to a lot of people doing it. Like for like most mainstream people, they don't care about supporting an indie developer on Steam or on itch. If they see a $40 game on sale for $9.99, they're going to go where the best values are. And I think that's kind of what Epic is, hedging their bet on. But again, the problem, of course, is that for the market they are trying to get to, the core Steam owners, they're not biting.
Right, because they're already too entrenched in it. It's like getting someone out of Apple's ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, like as soon as you're in, it's like, oh, I can switch to Android, but there's so much work, and I had to lose my iMessage, and I had to lose all my cloud stuff, and I do all this and lose all that. Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
really want to switch over, right? It's actually easier just to straddle the line and do both.
Mm-hmm. But as a time check, we are just over. Yeah, we are getting a little over an hour and 10 in. So I do want to at least switch and or at least talk about some of our favorite games this year. Before we do that, any other noticeable trends? Anything that's piquing your interest, Ken?
Piquing my interest,
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of a very niche one, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a company, or more like a guy, who creates a system called VorpX. And during the very early days of virtual reality,
Mm-hmm.
he was able to create an injector to make any game that's first person, or just any game, have a VR mod attached to it. So you can make any game VR and create a stereoscopic image. It is really cool. And I didn't forgot about that guy after 2011. Like I played like Fallout, non-natively in it. I'm like, cool, it's really cool. And then I just stopped using it. And then suddenly, through a Patreon no less, Cyberpunk 2077 got voted in to be a VR mod. And whenever I play that game, I always want to be in it. It's like one of the most atmospheric games I've
Mm-hmm.
ever played. And just the city itself is so like the design of it is so amazing. So being able to walk around it in VR, it sounds like something I would definitely want to do. So for anyone out there that has a machine as powerful as mine and has a VR headset, a high-end VR headset, go for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
called VorpX. Give it a shot.
Nice. I guess like for me, there's any like big things I'm following. Again, like just because I'm writing the book on free play design, I'm keeping an eye on the whole play to earn kind of thing. But I think for me, and again, like for the people watching, at this point, I don't really pay attention to new game releases because there's just so many games coming out. I just kind of get them as they come. It's like, oh, this game just came out. Okay, cool. And I have my wish list of like 800 games still on Steam.
Do you ever go on Steam and rearrange it?
Not really. I just usually just put anything like someone says looks cool on, and then if it goes on
Hmm.
sale, hey, I'll
I
check it out.
I put them that way actually. I rearrange them based on order of what I want, just because someone buys it for me, they'll know which one I wanted the most. It gets which one's on like my third wish list.
What?
Rosewater.
Uh,
Rosewater. I really love adventure games, like I said, and I even catched one of Dave's stream. His new game looks pretty cool. I'm excited to try it out.
yeah, I need to
So
talk with Dave again too. He's a great guy to chat with.
I'm glad to see that he's just as anxious as any other streamer, where he's trying to think about what's the most interesting thing for them to see. But they
Hmm.
don't care what you're doing; they just want to see you work on that stuff. It doesn't matter if you're programming or not, as long as you're talking to them, right? So I thought it was really cool that he actually did that.
And my wish list is just this like quagmirish mess of
Well,
games and no rhyme or reason on there.
fine. But give me your top one or top three. Go.
It'll take me like a
Just
minute just to look it up. Let's
dang.
see.
I'll look at mine really quick and I'll tell you my top three on my wish list.
Hmm.
So your wish list must be pretty old then, if that's the case. Let me see mine. I have to be on the store page first. Whoops. and then you can look up your wish list. So my top 3 is Artisify Draft 3, which is like a way to create like narratives for games. It's a solution for game narratives. Baldur's Gate 3, and Rosewater 3rd. I know, and Tales of Arise is 4. Path of, you know what? I don't know. I think I want Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous more than Tales of Arise. I'll put that above it now. There we go. They're both too expensive for him to get. They're still in their 40s. I'm like, I'll wait. Oh my god, Saints Row is on my list, the remastered version. Better put that at the bottom.
There's this 2D platform that we play where like the guy has like his arm just like massive grapple hook device. That was really good. I cannot find the name of it on my list, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Are we talking about is it like, what's that, the classic Capcom game?
Bionic Commando.
Bionic Commando. Is it Bionic Commando clone?
It's I think a little bit more advanced than that one. Let's see.
Is there any game you're definitely going to pick up for the end of sale?
Kind of went on a little shopping spree on Epic last night. I got what was it? Sheltered Steel, kind of like a first-person shooter, score chaser. Picked up Sakuna, Rice, and Ruin that I really want to play. And I'm trying to think of a few other ones. Just so many games. Oh, and I picked up a Wolf Stride. It was kind of like it's an RPG of you control giant mechs that fight each other.
Oh yeah, for me, I think the game I'm going to pick up is Cloudpunk. I think I'll pick that up.
I think I tried that one.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. And like I said, it's like Cloudpunk, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, and Tales of Arise. So we'll see which one actually wins. And there's a couple of VR games too that are really weird that I might pick up. I also have a just for fun. No, I won't even say what the game is. I'll just leave it as is because it's too weird. All right, there we go. I'll leave it mysterious.
All right. So I guess for the final point, then we'll spend like another 15 or so minutes just to wrap things up. Flint Hook I do like that one. That's not the game that I was thinking of. Maybe I can scan it on my list while I'm going over this section. Let's talk about some of our favorite games of 2021. Like, thanks to Forn and David, they gifted me the funds for the Games Pass, so I had a chance to play a lot more games. I have it for another 2 months or so, which is nice. So I finally got to play Psychonauts 2, Dodgeball Academia, and I like Psychonauts 2. I think, again, you'll never hear me complain about the story or the voice acting in that game, but the platforming just kind of it kind of lost my interest, I think, by the halfway point.
I could see that. Psychonauts 2 was my game of the year. I really loved everything about it. There was a secret section where in the casino level, or casino hospital level, where if you go to a certain area using the I forget which section. It's where the big wheel is. There's an alternative beginning where Raz is pregnant, and they're rushing him down to the delivery room, and it's just like a nightmare dream thing. And it's done in a terrible, sketchy pencil. It's really funny. Anyways, I think the intro was created by the Adventure Time creators. It was great.
Nice.
So got stuff like that, that level of creativity. That's what I'm looking for in my games.
My number one game was Library of Ruina, and that is just a very, very specific deck building visual novel RPG. It's one of those games that you'll know within 30 minutes whether or not you're going to keep playing it or you're going to refund it, basically. It's just very specific in terms of its setting.
I've seen that game. I've been looking at it for a while. I should add it on my wish list then, because it looks beautiful, you know?
It has amazing music too. All the music in the game is fantastic.
Do you know where is the studio from?
I believe they're from Korea.
Well, they did a great. I thought it was one of those, just from the art style. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
They've announced their next game, Limbic Corporation, which is going to be a completely different game as well.
What I'm talking about.
Pathless. Why does that sound familiar? And someday, like to Dragon's Comment, I need to go back and finish Crosscode. Like it's one of those games that I want to play, just can never find the time to fit it in.
There's some just classics. I don't know why, but I own Baldur's Gate 2 on 6 platforms. And I always start 30 minutes in, I just give up every time. It's a classic I always want to play and can never get into.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you watching, you probably remember this year I also tried getting into Dead by Daylight. It's like the most fascinating game that I both love and hate at the same time that I played.
I hate it. I hate watching it. I find it the most boring thing to watch, and all these streamers stream it, and I just don't want to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still gotta play Sakuna. What was another one? I recently played Against the Storm, which is a roguelike city builder, and I really want to delve more into that one. And I also want to play Kanga, Seeds of Civilization. Like, that's another roguelike city builder that's in early access. And if Thorn is watching, I still need him to create me a sequel to Hinterland, which is one of my favorite kind of hidden gem, diamond in a rough kind of games.
I would say Wildermyth is another game that I really liked. I think it was hyped up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as hyped as it. It's not near like on my top on my list, but I thought it was pretty good overall. People that loved it really love it, but maybe haven't gotten far enough into it to get the right story points.
Yeah, I've heard people really love that game or just like really bounced off of it, and it seems like it goes either way.
I'm kind of stuck in I'm hanging on a ledge. Maybe pull myself up, maybe not with that game. I'm liking it, but then I don't stick to it long enough. But then again, I'm pretty busy too. Griftlands, by the way, you played it.
Yeah.
I actually liked it, but I only liked the first half, the first third, just the first character. After that, it's kind of hard for me to get back into it.
Yeah, I had that same issue too. Another game that's kind of like in that same realm, let's see if I can find on my list here, is Star Renegades. It's from the developer of Halcyon Project, or Halcyon Light Project.
That's on my list too, actually, on my wish list. It's somewhere. It's below Humankind.
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
I love the art of Star Renegades. It was one of those games that I played it one time, got literally 98% done. I came one turn away from beating the final boss on my run, and then I just lost the motivation to keep playing it.
Oof, that's not good. There's a lot of games similar to Stellar Tactics, but for some reason that one stood atop of everything else. I'm not sure why. But if it's on my wish list, it means I must want to play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably Dragon. I think that's what's going to happen when I play that game.
Have you heard a game called Banners of Ruin? It's animal combat. Will you play that? Is it worth it?
That one. I confused it with the Banner Saga for a second. Yeah.
Oh, Banner Saga is different. That's a legacy now. There's 3 Banner Sagas now out.
Right? I know. I only have even played all of them.
I've only played the first one. I backed the first one actually.
Yeah. I liked Banners of Ruin, but it didn't feel like there was enough things that were different on each run. The variance was very low. And I will say they did release another update to it, so it must be doing at least reasonably well. I like the aesthetics of it. It has a really great kind of low fantasy kind of look to it.
The animation is amazing for Banner Saga. Probably one of the best in the whole everything. So excited. I'm always excited about that game. But like I said, I don't know why I didn't stick with it. But like I said, there's a lot of interesting ones. Let's see. On my list too, I'll tell you the other games that I can think of that I played that came out in 2021. Ruin King, a League of Legends story. It's the same people that made Battle Chasers.
Oh.
That's why it's so familiar, the combat. It's Battle Chasers, but League of Legends.
That's another game that's been on I would like to go back and play it someday, but can never find the time.
I think they made Darksiders 3 too. Did they not?
Don't know.
Let me see. Battle Chasers.
We did play Darksiders 3. That was the Souls-like one. That was a nightmare to play on the highest difficulty.
I'm pretty sure they just did Yeah, they just did the Battle Chasers. I think they might have done something more, but I mean, I'm just checking out their website, battlechasers.com, not the studio. Well, there it is, Airship Syndicate. That's what they are.
Hmm.
And they made, well, Brewing King. Oh yeah, they did make Darksiders Genesis. I knew it. They did make Darksiders game.
Okay, they made the Genesis one. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like the Diablo-ish kind of game.
Hmm.
They didn't make the one with the third one. So technically, they made the fourth one, or the offshoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another game that, of course, I play this year. You mentioned Inscription earlier. I really enjoyed Inscription. If it wasn't for playing Gunfire Reborn, probably would have gotten number 2 for me for this year.
Gunfire Reborn. That's on my list too. I also have Inscription on my list too, but it looks spooky. But it's not spooky. But it's kind of spooky. It is spooky.
It's spooky for a certain part of it, and then the spookiness goes away, which is what a lot of people complain about.
That doesn't continue to be spooky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're exposed to something long enough, it does become spooky.
Well, the game, without spoiling it, changes its style several times. Oh, they made the Darksiders Genesis. So, okay, yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess the most popular game I played beyond Psychonauts 2 would be It Takes Two. Did you play shoot that with somebody?
No, not yet.
I really think you should. It is pretty good. It's a game that instead of having like one form of their main mechanic is changing their mechanics every scenario. They're like, oh, it's like minigame mania.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty fun playing with a partner because it's really dependent on your partner being competent enough to follow your directions and or vice versa.
So it's a perfect game to ruin friendships then.
Or to strengthen relationships, right? It's a relationship based game.
Oh yeah, Fury's a good one. Oh, and that reminds me, I did buy Haven, the sequel to, or not the sequel, the next game from the developer of Fury. I need to play that one too.
Cool.
Good job. You go for that, Dragon. Let me know how Sukuna turns out too. Fury can be nightmarish on some like the higher fights in that game.
You know what I really want to do is I'm not really keeping track of many adventure games. I want to, but I haven't seen any nice releases coming out except for Life is Strange is the only one I know of. But where's all the indie adventure games? I want more games like the Unavowed. Where are the Unavoweds? Where are they?
Yeah, I mean, talking about like the market for adventure games, that's another podcast easily. And
is it? I don't think it's dead. I think if they make it, people will come and play it. Like it's a staple. It's great narrative. It's more active than visual novels are, but visual novels are pretty popular now too. To the point where I feel like it's flooded, and it's usually just like you have to make games that are either romance based or horror based, and I made a game that's neither. Haha! I'm shooting myself in the foot. There we go. But it looks cool.
Let's see. I also enjoyed Webbed. If you had a chance to play that one.
Webbed.
Yeah, it's like you play a little spider going on adventure. It's like all like web physics of you swinging around.
It very much Boomerang game.
Yeah, Boomerang X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that one on my list. I'll probably pick it up from the Epic sale as well, because I think I can get it for like $1 thanks to the $10 coupon.
No, what we should do is we should play Gorilla Tag together in VR. You play a gorilla and you have to play tag with other gorillas. It sounds real dumb, but it's very fun.
Let's see. And of course, like several games I'm really looking forward to that are still like in early access. World of Horror. Void Reigns Upon Our Heart. And what was it? I think that's the two biggies. World of Horror recently got its development like back on track, so hopefully we'll be seeing more of that one. Oh, and Ultra Kill. Like Ultra Kill is still, I cannot wait for that game to come out of early access. And Gloomhaven from New Blood as well.
You know what? I guess the games that are people that you've been on your cast are ones I want to see. I want to see Rosewater, and I want to see the Diamond.
Oh, the is it Crimson Diamond?
Crimson Diamond. I'm gonna put that on my wish list right now. I see her sometimes stream, and I need to make sure I back the game. Oh, the chapter 1's on free to play. What is going on? Anyways, definitely want to try that game out too.
Yeah,
but I never was part of that genre. It's too old for me. VGA style adventure games. Talking about like, I guess I did play the Hugo series when I was a kid, but that's about it. And even then, I was very confused about that whole genre. Because that's more like Laura Bow. If you know Laura Bow.
Sounds familiar.
It was an adventure game series with a Southern Belle as the main character, and they made one called The Colonel's Request, which is kind of like a VGA adventure, similar to Crimson Diamond. But the second one is closer to a regular adventure game. It's pretty cool. Again, you don't see that many games with female protagonists at that era, so I think she did a good job. I just feel like she never became popular enough, but I really think she was really cool.
And I don't want to get into an adventure game rant because we'll be here for another like hour or two. And we're like coming up on time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like noticeable or notable for the games that I've played. I played Prodigal, which I really enjoyed. We had the developers on for a cast. That cast will be going up, I want to say, in the next 3 weeks, at least from the time of when we're doing this show live. A very solid kind of like GBA Zelda-like, which was really nice.
Is there games that have to be, the games you played had to be in 2021 or be released in 2021?
Well, I'll try to be at least somewhat in 2021.
Because I really love NeoCab, and I would like to talk about it as much as I can. The only problem I have with NeoCab and Coffee Talk, which I both love, none of them is voice acted. I want them voice acted, please. Hire voice actors. I know it's expensive, but it was totally worth it. I guess technically, Skyrim Anniversary Edition came out 2021. Does that count?
Skyrim just keeps coming out every year.
Every year. They don't fix anything. They leave it as it is, and they just they slap the label on there. I think the Anniversary Edition has like 200 Creation Club elements attached to it, which then breaks all the Skyrim mods that already exist. So all the modders are just like freaking out, or like just like going through and trying to fix all the broken stuff. But again, they are trying to work. The developers trying to work with the modders to help fix their mods. So that's good.
Oh, another game that I really want to play is the Faith Trilogy when it finally comes out. And if you haven't heard of Faith, it is horror. Like, it is 100% horror done in, like, I think it's 8-bit or maybe fewer bits than that. But yeah, if you don't like horror, do not go near Faith.
Okay. Is that? I think I know what the game that is. I've played some of the demos of it. For me, it's interesting with some of the games that I play that are. It's more like because now that I'm like investigating more of the board game space along with some of the VN space, I'm noticing a lot of very. When I say interesting, what I mean is I didn't know they existed, but now they do, kind of thing. So I'm trying out all these games that aren't really well known, but have elements in them that make them unique that I may want to integrate into my projects in the future. And hopefully one day when they actually release their games, I can promote too. So, but in terms of other games I didn't actually talk about, is there any games that you thought were really interesting that didn't come out in 2011 in 2021 that you played?
You mean a game that came out earlier?
Yes, that like sometimes you get. How about this? What game have you played in your backlog this year?
Oh God, a lot. So all the indie games I play, it's like hard to keep track.
Pick your favorite backlog game that didn't come out in 2021. Because it is like a 2021 game. It's just didn't play until now. Because it's a big meme. Everyone talks about their Steam library and how it always gets forgotten.
Except that's true for me because I have over 1,000 games in mine.
I know you're beating me. I only have 800, but I'm not a game reviewer.
Let's see if I can find anything here on this list really fast.
I'll just tell you mine. Yeah, go on.
I would say I did play the Stubbs the Zombie remaster, which was okay.
Hey, I love original Stubbs. I never played the remaster though.
Oh, I got one. Overcooked 2, where we
Oh,
played that
nice.
one this year. We did that co-op with Juan and Shark. That was a lot of fun and a lot of craziness at the same time.
It is a great party game. And like I said, the reason I think that I'm also getting into the party game space for board games, which is interesting. It's
Hmm.
like a whole different viewpoint on how you take on games because it's marketed towards the mass populace
Hmm.
over specifically just gamers, which is interesting.
Yeah. Oh, another one was Ultimate Chiggler. So we played a lot of really great co-op games on
Yeah,
the
there's a
stream
ton
this
of
year.
those. Yeah, really fun. That's a good one. Oh, the game that I played was Jenny LeClue.
Hmm.
That
Okay.
had a really good adventure game. Is it an adventure game where you're like a kid detective,
Hmm.
and the animation style and like the different elements within it, it's pretty well written. It has pretty good impact. Music's pretty good overall. Something I'm still trying to finish, but something I really liked was Jenny LeClue, and I
Hmm.
feel like not many people have heard of it.
Yeah, I've not heard of that one either.
Dang, these poor adventure games. I still
Hmm.
need, by the way, the guy that made the Cthulhu, the adventure game. What was it called again? Do you
Was it
remember?
Call of Cthulhu or Lovecraft
Uh,
City of the Deep? Or
no, it's called Gibeus, a Cthulhu adventure.
oh,
It's
that
with
one, yeah.
it's with the cat.
Hmm.
Yeah, that one. I actually bought that, so I need to play that game too.
All right. But I think we can probably wrap things up for this week, unless there's anything else you want to touch on for 2022.
For 2022, this is what I want to say.
Hmm.
Because I need looking back at 2021. Um, so pretty much in terms of development, I see that the great year of resignation, and with all this information coming out, what happened with Blizzard, along with what happened at Riot and other
Hmm.
game developers, is that I think that it's kind of a wake up call for the public about how brutal and meat grindy like the games industry is, and how abusive it is to its own workers,
Hmm.
and how there is a need for a union. And they're getting ever closer. I think one major thing that protected the movie industry was having unions.
Hmm.
So things like the writer's strike and stuff like that, so you can't be abused because they were being abused in the past. And game development is probably one of the most difficult fields to be in because it's so multidisciplinary to make
Hmm.
a game. And like the games that are so ambitious, just grind away the developers to hell. Like we're talking about Anthem, for example, putting people on a holiday forever, right? Where they
Hmm.
just disappear, they just stop working, they stop coming to work because they're that stressed out. And things like Cyberpunk, like I appreciate games that ambitious, even if they fall on their face miserably.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you can make a game ambitious and not work your two people to the bone for
I
that
mean,
art,
that's
you
the
know?
independent space in a nutshell.
Right. The thing is that you put it like they put that invisible pressure on their workers to be able to get something accomplished, right?
Hmm.
They grind people's passions away, and that's no good. Because if you want people to stay in the industry, if you want people talented to stay in the industry, you have to treat them appropriately. Especially when you're making, we're talking
Hmm.
about specifically Activision, 20 to 50 billion dollars, like whatever amount they make. It's definitely in the billions, probably closer to like 3 billion than 50 billion. But still, like they're making
Hmm.
billions, yet they can't afford to pay their developers a salary. They can't pay their
Hmm.
QA to stay on beyond $10 an
Yeah.
hour. It's insane. It is literally chump change to them, right? They like this is money they can drop in the parking lot and be fine with, right? So
Hmm.
it's saying that they don't care about their workers as much as they should to retain talent and grow a company instead of just me grinding them out and getting some new batch of people coming out of school
Yeah.
and abusing them. So
Hmm.
that's why it is important to protect the workers that are currently exist and the future and for people coming into the industry. And it's not a zero sum game when it comes to game development. Everyone can prosper. We don't need to suffer.
Hmm. Yep. And yeah, to Melinius' comment, it's that great catch there when it comes to kind of like covering the indie studios that the ones that blow up, you want to cover their games, but at the same time, they don't really need the help anymore. And then you have to go find somebody else to cover and hope that they, get their lucky shot, in the spotlight. Like, I remember when nobody really heard of Red Hook Games and Darkest Dungeon. Now everyone has heard of them. But then there are
Right.
plenty of games I've played that, have less than 500 reviews on Steam.
And the thing is that just thinking about having a game that has 500 views as a developer is really wild. Because when you start seeing like your game has one review, you're like, oh man, here it is. Someone outside our team is actually playing our game. That's crazy. But the thing is that every developer has that fear that no one's going to play their game. You know what I mean? No matter how good
Mm-hmm.
it is, no one's gonna play their game. No matter how
Yeah.
many years and years you put into it, and you see some a-hole then made a jumping mechanic. It took him like a weekend, and they're blowing up into the millions. Just like, God dang it! Why did I put so much effort into this? Where I could have done that? But that's not the point. The point is, what is your goal as a developer? Do you want to put something out there that you think is fun, or you want people to share, or are you doing it for profit? Are you doing it for your team? There's a lot of different reasons why you make a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of it being rewarding to the developers, depending on their end goal. But as
Mm-hmm.
a reviewer, you're looking for the best game for the audience at large, and then pointing
Mm-hmm.
people and curating and allowing people to get those kind of experiences that love a specific genre, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But with your cast specifically, I also really like your focus on developers because they have something to say too. Instead of just being putting something out there then being abused, it's good to kind of share their stories to help understand that not every developer is an island, right? We can learn from each other's mistakes and we
Mm-hmm.
can help each other out when we can. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. And I think that's a really good point to end on for this week. So, we're going to wrap things up for this week's show. Ken, thank you for coming on and being the relief co host while hopefully Shark is getting better.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. And for everyone watching, be sure to check out the Big Shuffle. There'll be links to all of Ken's works, the social medias, and so on in the show notes, as well as in the live stream description as well. Anything else you want to plug in terms of social media before we sign off?
Well, we do have a link tree with our socials, but if you want to see more of our work, you can go to previously.pluto.com. Again, that's previouslypluto.com. And if you want to know more about our Kickstarter, we actually have a dedicated website called thebigshuffle.com. But we have 6 days left on our Kickstarter, and we have a lot of interesting stretch goals to get to, but we're getting really, really close. But anyone that comes into the project now is going to get the best quality a box you can get that you won't get in the retail version. So upgraded cards, upgraded boxes, upgraded elements within the box itself, along
Mm-hmm.
with special Kickstarter artwork that you can't get in retail either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're maybe a K away from unlocking our fifth stretch goal, which is a specific or specified playmat for the game. So yeah. Oh yeah, and there's also an expansion that we unlocked too. So we're making an expansion already for one of our games. So check it out now and see what a film noir card game's all about.
All right. And again, congratulations on the Kickstarter meeting its goals.
Yeah, I'm really happy and excited, and I'm glad that more people are coming and viewing and checking out a game with a very unique aesthetic, something that's very American, which is the 1940s film noir era of cinema. And yeah, and I think the game itself is fun, and so it's both beautiful and fun, and it's the product I stand behind. I think it's awesome.
All right. And for myself, you'll find links to our Discord and Patreon down below. Follow me on Twitter at GW Bycer. And for anyone who wants to donate at least $15 or more before January 12th, that will be the deadline for getting acknowledgement in my next book on free to play design. It is the largest book I've written to date, and there's a whole lot in there. So if you have any interest in live service, mobile, free to play, or just want to see all the tricks people have used to try to get money out of you, then be sure to check that one out. The show will be back next Sunday. Hopefully, we'll get Shark back on for that to continue our What is a Game series. But if you're new, do all the liking and subscribing, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, everybody, take care.
See ya.